Welcome all, Dax here. Over the last few years, I've noticed a lot of negativity around direct sequels of beloved games, especially those with comparable visuals and reused maps. There are exceptions to everything, of course, but I'm actually loving this approach to sequels and want to tell you why. As I discuss this topic, I want you to do me a favor and keep in mind the word nuanced. So there's no right or wrongs here, but that word seems to be foreign to many of the people on the internet. Like anything, there are pros and cons to everything. Back in the day when development for games was a fraction of the time and resources that it takes today, direct sequels were abundant. Pick any 3D platformer of the time and chances are you had at least 3 mainline titles in less than 5 years. Even massive open world games like those of early Rockstar were coming out left and right, which is unimaginable today. I think back then waiting a year for a sequel was a much smaller ask over waiting a 5-year time frame for a very uninspiring, familiar experience today. Now let's address some of the very valid complaints about direct sequels. The first one being that lack of feeling of new. If you enjoyed games like The Sims, Batman Arkham Asylum, Portal, Dark Souls, and Halo, yeah, I know those games are all very similar, but I'm sure you also enjoyed the follow-ups to those games even if they did not feel as revolutionary as the original. Many games constantly seek that feeling of new, which in all reality is harder and harder to come by today, with diminishing returns being a real thing. Looking at this on a more macro level, if a publisher makes a lot of money on a particular game, the probability that they take a chance on a new IP is much slimmer. Like any form of entertainment, innovation and passion are always going to be valued most by the consumer, but a little old game called The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom helps demonstrate the best case scenario in a world full of direct sequels. Tears of the Kingdom built upon everything Breath of the Wild did before it, including even its map. Breath of the Wild sequel feels familiar yet new, which is a direct sequel done right. I think some people gloss over many of the positive aspects of a good sequel. The first being the chance for us gamers to spend more time with these beloved characters and places. I want to spend more time swinging around through Marvel Spider-Man's New York, or solving shrines in Hyrule, or just cutting people down in feudal Japan. I've enjoyed those experiences so much to the point where I just want more of them. Does God of War Ragnarok look visually similar to 2018's God of War with even the same boat animations? It sure does, but I can't say I care too much about that when I have an epic new weapon, a ton of new enemy types, snappier controls, and a satisfying narrative conclusion. For many gamers, 2018's God of War will be the more impactful title in their memories, but Ragnarok will be the superior game overall to those looking a little more objectively at the final products, as well as for someone who decides to binge both of them back to back years from now. I think many ideas and concepts need time to grow and to be truly fleshed out to their potential. For so many series, the best installment is often one of the sequels realizing the potential of the original concepts. Think of Halo, Mass Effect, Pokemon, The Witcher, Half-Life, Uncharted, and recently Jedi Survivor. All of those games are examples of good games followed up by even better ones. Sequels, specifically direct ones, have the opportunity to make meaningful improvements to a solid foundation. If Sucker Punch Studios was able to make a game as good as Ghost of Tsushima, imagine how good its sequel will be given the lessons that they've learned from their prior attempt. A lot of players want a sequel to look new with the visuals, but also want a new place to discover. How often did you hear players complaining about God of War Ragnarok taking place in mostly the same location, or the same was often projected about Tears of the Kingdom before its release, and now Spider-Man 2 has some similar complaints issued towards it as well. Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales is one of the best looking open world games to date, so I'm not sure how much better you can make something look if it's already amazing. Besides, the visuals are top notch, so let's just leave that alone. I would much rather have the developers focus on gameplay, and some story. If developers don't have to spend as much time building every element of the game from the ground up, there is usually an abundance of content in place of that, especially with such long development cycles. What do you think Nintendo has been doing for the past 6 years? The answer is content and polish. If they're reusing the same map, all that time and resources must have been going into something, assuming the game wasn't in some sort of development hell. But when it comes to content, Tears of the Kingdom and God of War Ragnarok make their predecessors look modest in comparison. I'm all for new IP, but I can't deny that direct sequels often make for some of the greatest gaming experiences one can find. With an established world, developers are allowed the resources to refine existing concepts while also being able to explore entirely new ones. I'm super excited to play Marvel Spider-Man 2, Ghost of Tsushima's inevitable sequel, but I'm also happy to see games like Rise of the Ronin, Cory Barlog's next game, Starfield, and even Game Freak's untitled Samurai project. Semi-annualized, samey-feeling titles can leave a sour taste in many players' mouths, but just keep in mind those aren't direct sequels, but rather zombie franchises never left to die. Pick any GTA, Diablo, Mario Kart, Street Fighter, and God of War, and those games are actually given time to innovate and rest, and so they tend to be more fresh over annualized releases. I think new IPs are the most important classification of games, but I also want to see great concepts fleshed out to the maximum in direct sequels. Are you tired of same old games, or are you like me and you also like to see a mix of old and new? I'm curious to see how you watching are feeling about this topic. I've recently been playing Tears of the Kingdom, and I can't help but be thrilled that the Zelda team decided to go this direct sequel route instead of starting something completely fresh, at least for now. If you liked the video, please leave me a like. As always, appreciate you for watching, and until next time, see ya.